Everyone, Joe Waxman here, the mediocre astrologer. Man, he's okay. Oh my gosh. I haven't been making videos because this whole situation, I'm sure a lot of people are feeling it, some more than others, with the war in Israel and Gaza. And uh, I wanted to say a few things about this. And I'm not this isn't me making a case for Israel or what the IDF is doing. I don't really have a say in it, and there's no real point in going out of my way to try and legitimize what they're doing because I don't live there and most people don't. And it's really hard to get a full scope of things from here. Um, I support Israel's right to exist. I don't buy any of the arguments that Israel's illegitimate and shouldn't be there in the first place. That's nonsense. So, coming from that side of things, it is really tough to take in what Hamas did, just as any country. I mean, if we put that as the standard, Israel's any country and an outside group attack them. Yeah, I understand there's going to be dissenting opinions, but anyway, that's not the point of this video. What I wanted to address is this idea of mob mentality that we are witnessing right now. It's really taken over a lot of people. And so I want to look at that. I've always been under the assumption, and quite accurately, I believe, as far as I can tell, and so far I've never been disproven, and other people have said the same, and I'm going to attempt to demonstrate that the mob, the masses generally are the lowest intelligence, right? If we look at it, if we reverse engineer it, and we talk about the most intelligent people on the planet, well, they're rare, right? These are not common people, the most intelligent, right? Whether you're talking about like the great spiritual leaders, the great political leaders, the great scientists, the great physicists, the great artists, whoever, whatever category, to be at the top is very rare. It's not easy, and that's what we call intelligent, right? Therefore, the inverse is also true, and it becomes kind of pyramidal. I know people think of like the Illuminati and stuff like that. They're using this universal shape, which is the triangle. They can't own that shape. Let's just be real about it. They can't own shapes. So, the triangle is not proprietary to the Illuminati or the Freemasons or however you want to term it. It's a universal shape. So we can all use the triangle. I'm not some people are so reactionary. Anytime they see a triangle, they're like, Illuminati, like get over it. You know what I mean? Like it's a triangle. It's a universal shape. You're gonna go anywhere in the whole universe, like other civilization, which I believe there exists. They might be light years away, but any alien civilization that's out there, they're also gonna have triangles, right? It's inevitable, right? So they're gonna have all the basic shapes anywhere you go. So anyway, the pyramidal thing is that's literally the way society is shaped, where the top is the most intelligent and it's few and far between. And then you get to the bottom rung, the middle is the middle intelligence. You get to the bottom rung, that's the masses. That's the mob mentality. And these are the least intelligent of the people, right? I mean, if you look in terms of IQ is not the only measurement. That's this very specific, narrow band of intelligence. But even then, 100 is the average, right? And that's the masses. And then when you get like the mob, it's like 100 and below. So actually, the mob mentality is averaging between 100, mostly around the 100 realm and the below. You're not going to get a whole lot of the higher intelligence group because these are people who are thinking independently and they're not going to be swayed by the masses, right? The people who are swayed by the masses are animalistic. Let's put it in real terms. Like, look at animals. Literally, look at animals. What can you say about them? They're herds. They're herd intelligence. What are you talking about? School of fish, flocks of, birds or herds of animals, right? The animals always herd together, and the lower intelligence always herd together. They have to. It is and it's not just me saying it, so I'm going to provide some evidence to back up what I'm saying, that the more intelligent you become, the more individuated you become. This is also true in spirituality when we're talking about the growth, the pattern of growth for individuals to become more evolved. You're going from an animalistic group mindset where you're finding comfort in the herd, you're going along where you're conditioned, you're part of a group, a tribe, and you just do what everyone else is doing. You think what everyone else is thinking, you behave like everyone else is behaving, right? Then as you evolve, the process, and this is very evident in astrology if we look at the archetypes of the signs, right? The individuation process is represented in the evolution of the signs, right? It's a process of becoming more and more of an individual, meaning that you're separate from the group, from the herd. You evolve, you become more human, which is to become more intelligent, more independent, and more humane, right? More empathetic, more loving, more heart-centered, but also independent-minded. As these develop, right? The path of life is towards evolution, towards development. It's not towards stasis. It's not toward conformity and normatives, right? It's about becoming fully individuated, right? And so there, as most people know, like we get to a part of our spiritual development we call the dark night of the soul. This is a deepening of that individuation, is what it really is. You're faced with your own demons, your own darkness, your own dark side, right? Your own shadow self, and you become very alone, right? This is, everyone knows this. The further you go into spirituality, into the dark night of the soul, into your own individuation, the more you become a loner, right? A lone wolf, an independent person. And you're forced to think independently because you no longer energetically vibrate with the masses. So you become a loner. Then you go through this long process of being alone, thinking, learning how to think for yourself, independently of everyone in the whole universe. Really, this is what it comes down to: thinking independently from everyone in the whole goddamn universe. Like no books, no teachers, no gurus, no nothing. Just you and your mind thinking. Like, what do I think? Well, fuck the whole goddamn universe. Fuck the whole thing. Just what do I think? That's it, right? And that's where it's taking you to. There's more than that. Like you have to go beyond that, but you do go through that. And that's like the needle hole, right? The hole in the eye of the needle, right? You're being squeezed into, like, you have to learn that. What do I think? Never mind what the whole world thinks. Never mind what the whole universe thinks. Never mind what God thinks. Well, because God is a concept in this sense, right? Like, or the Bible, or the Quran, or the Torah, or the Bhagavad Gita, whatever. Like any holy book or whatever. You're inspired. What do I think? Right? It might be along those same lines, but still, you're forced to think independently for yourself, and you may come to the same conclusions sometimes, and you may not, right? Depending on who you are, or it may change, right? But the point is that you are driven to think independently, and that doesn't mean reactionary. Some people think they're thinking independently by disbelieving everything, every narrative that comes up. Well, the media says it must not be true. That's probably a good barometer, but still, sometimes the media is reporting the truth. I mean, it's not just categorically false, because sometimes things are happening like in real time, and there's not enough time to sort of, they're just reporting on what's happening, right? Facts. Like, you have to be able to discern that, whether they're spinning the information, which is a lot of the case, or they're just reporting the facts. And there are different newspapers are gonna, different media outlets are gonna say different things. So they do all the time. So it's not like, lockstep, they're all together. Sometimes they are, right? I'm not saying, we have the videos where they are, all lockstep, but sometimes they're not. So I mean, life is messy. Life is organic. Life is not about, like, one size fits all. My point was that some people think they're thinking independently by just going against the popular narrative or whatever it is, and that's not thinking independently either, right? So yeah, the process of evolution is always driving a person towards being fully individuated. Then once you really mastered that, once you really learned that lesson, then you can expand outwards into society again, from a different place. You're no longer being manipulated by the popular opinions, right? The consensus crowd, the mob mentality, right? You're able to think independently and be in the world with the people and have friends and have social, but you're not tied to it. Jesus said, be in the world but not of the world, right? Something like that. So yes. So we're witnessing a lot of protests right now. And it's kind of scary, and it's really scary. Like, I want you to understand that if you're not Jewish, then it's probably not going to hit you the same. But when you see large crowds chanting "Kill the Jews," "Gas the Jews," we want genocide of the Jewish people, that's a little intimidating, right? It's a little bit scary because we've recently had that. Like, my family, my grandparents did escape the Nazis, escape the Holocaust. Like, literally, my grandmother lost a lot of her family, and I grew up with war stories, and that kind of trauma runs through generations. So I'm not immune to it. I'm very familiar. I've had my own personal trauma, and then I've had generational trauma. So I'm like pretty at this point, I'm used to it. I'm used to it more than a lot of people. It is what it is. I mean, I can't argue with reality. A lot of people like to argue with reality. They say Israel shouldn't exist. Israel exists, just like these protests exist. So, I mean, you might want to alter your idea of what should and shouldn't be. I mean, that's just a much healthier way to go about it. And what do we do from here, right? You know what I mean? It's not like Israel shouldn't exist and 1948 shouldn't have happened. Well, okay. I mean, that's really ridiculous. I mean, you can make that argument about a lot of things. Pakistan shouldn't have been created in 1948, right? India is traditionally a Hindu country and Buddhist, but the Buddhists and Hindus didn't kill each other the way the Muslims and the Hindus did. Largely Muslims. It's not. It's just a fact. I'm not trying to. I love the peaceful Muslims, the ones who are killing each other. I don't. It's it's not that. It's not against the religion. It's against the fact that they're fighting and killing and trying to dominate. Right. There was just a terrorist attack in India right now, in the area where there's Indian Jews, right? Indian Jews who lived in India for a long time. And there was a terrorist attack, and they killed one person. I don't know if they were Jewish or not, right? But yeah, so it's not good, right? Any case, so yeah, let me share my screen. I want to share a few things. All right, first of all, let's look at this quote. I have some quotes because I think a lot of wise, intelligent people understood the same point, right? Whenever you find yourself on the side of the majority, it is time to reform or pause and reflect. Mark Twain. When you set aside mere names and come down to realities, you find that we are ruled by a king, just as other absolute monarchies are. His name is the majority. He is mighty in bulk and strength. He rules by the right of possessing less money and less brains. The masses are the idiots. They are. And they also happen to be poor because they're not very intelligent. It's not. I'm not. Listen, I'm a poor person too. So if anything, I'm picking on myself here. Not that I consider myself less brains, because I never consider myself a minority, but anyway. And more ignorance than the other competitor for the throne, the minority. Ours is an absolute monarchy. That's pretty good. Unsent letter to Bayard Taylor, June 10th, 1870. Ours is an absolute monarchy. He's saying the majority are it's a minority. It's a monarchy. Sorry. The majority is the monarchy. The majority rules with an absolute authoritarian monarchy, according to Mark Twain at that time. All right. Oops, sorry about that. That's not what I want. Okay. Here you can see that, all right, here, read it. This is not even a Jew. This is a Muslim guy or an Arabic guy. I don't know if he's Muslim or not, but he's got an Arabic name. Thousands of Syrians killed in ruthless airstrikes. So many women murdered in Iran. Nobody cared. He's talking about the injustices of the world that happen on a regular basis where we don't get these protests. If you didn't know history, you'd think this is the first time innocent people have ever died before, and it's absolutely false. Innocent people are killed in wars all the time, and I'm not making an excuse for it. I hate it personally. I'm not justifying. I think it's in a very difficult situation, but that's not the point of this. The point of this is about mob mentality, right? So people don't protest normally. This is not just, oh, innocent people are being killed, right? People normally just ignore it because, first of all, the media either ignores stories or inflames them, right? That's their job. The intelligent are generally less manipulated by the media, but the unintelligent are extremely manipulated by the media, the masses, right? The sheeple, the NPCs, the dummy. I'm sorry, but most people aren't that intelligent, right? But some British Islamists and leftists are enraged that Hamas is being pounded and might be decimated. Palestine is an excuse. This is about supporting violent extremism. London has an Islamist problem. Mohammed was the most popular baby's name in London in 2022. So you can see that the Islamists, the Muslims in London are taking over, really. And this is about the mob mentality that represents. I want you to understand that Muslims are 1.7 billion in the world, right? So they are a majority. They're among one of the majorities, Christians, also Muslims, Asians, whatever their religion is, maybe Buddhism, I guess. Hinduism is also a very big one. Judaism is a very small one. Judaism is a minority. We're about 16 million, right? Big in influence, which is part of the problem. People don't like that we're small in number and big in influence, but it is what it is. I'm not going to defend or deny it or make excuses for it. It is what it is. Jews have a lot of influence for whatever reason that is. I mean, it is what it is. Like you could say, oh, it's because of this, because of that. Different people have, come up with different reasons. I can tell you it's not a conspiracy. Jews aren't putting other Jews in high places. I mean, maybe sometimes when it's family and stuff like that, but most Jews get where they are on their own. But in any case, I know some people are balking at that, but it's largely true. So whatever. Anyway, it's no more true for the Jews being in high places in like wherever they are than any other group in their own uniqueness. Every group has their own uniqueness, and I don't want to get too deep in this because people will easily attack me for anything that's anything I say that's really real. But you can just imagine the different groups, they're all unique and all successful in their own ways, right? Just use your brain, think about this. The different groups have different strengths and weaknesses, right? So there's that. I mean, that's a reality that nobody can really deny, right? But you make sense of that yourself. People are very, very aggressive right now, so I have to be careful what I say because I've been attacked a lot. I've done some attacking as well, but I need to sort of calm it down because it's worrisome, it's troublesome. All right, so we can see like this mob, right? And it's not just in London. I mean, there was a protest here in Philly. It's everywhere. It's around the world. This mob mentality, right? All right, so let's look at some other things. So Plato quotes about democracy, and democracy really means mob rule, right? I didn't pull up the quote from this, but Ben Franklin said, democracy is two wolves and a sheep deciding on what's for dinner. Democracy is majority rules. And, you know, if you live in America, you would think that democracy is the most valuable thing we got. It's not, right? Like, and this has been disproven from all the way back from the Greek times about democracy. Democracy is mob rule, right? We have a democratic republic. The republic is ruled by law, right? Rule by law protects the minority. Democracy does not, right? Tyranny naturally arises out of democracy. Dictatorship naturally arises out of democracy. And the most aggravated form of tyranny and slavery out of the most extreme liberty. So he's saying without, it's not really paraphrasing. I'm explaining. I would interpret this as to mean like without a set of laws, which is republic. Plato did like the republic, Plato's republic, right? He talks about that. Rule of laws, then this is what happens with democracy, right? If you have republic and then democracy on top, fine, great. Democracy leads to anarchy, which is mob rule. That's what we're saying. Democracy passes into despotism. Democracy does not contain any force which will check the state tendency to put more and more on the public payroll, right? Bankrupting nations, put more on the public payroll, tax more. The state is like a hive of bees, which the drones display, multiply and starve the workers, so the idlers will consume the food and the workers will perish. Right? So he goes on and on. A democracy is a state in which the poor, gaining the upper hand, kill some, the Jews, and banish others, also the Jews and people like them, Jews, gypsies, things like that, the minorities, right? What Hitler did, remember, Hitler didn't just kill the Jews, he also killed the gypsies, right? So, and he also killed the infirm, right? He killed the elderly, the mentally handicapped, the weak. So if you think Hitler's great because he killed the Jews, you're also gonna have to be willing to kill everyone who's not a Ubermensch, right? Superman is basically, you know, the Nazi ideal, right? So anyone who's not Superman, your idea of Superman gets it, right? That's if you want to go down that road, which is a lot of the way a lot of people are marching, this mob mentality, are really taking up the Hitler mantle, right? That's where they're going with it. They're gonna have to kill everyone who's not an Ubermensch. Kill some and banish others, and then divide the offices among the remaining citizens equally, usually by lot. Right. All right. I mean, there's a lot more. I don't want to waste too much time on this. Let's see here. Mob mentality quote. Sorry. All person ought to endeavor to follow what is right, not what is established. Aristotle. A mob always made up people, no matter what. Mr. Cunningham was part of the mob last night, but he was still a man. Every mob. All right. All right. The tyranny of public opinion. And what an opinion is as fatuous. I had to look that up. I think it means like silly. I'm not going to bother. In the small towns of France is in the United States of America. It's not a good word. It is a good word. It doesn't describe a good thing. Fatuous. It's like ridiculous, stupid, silly. So the tyranny of public opinion is stupid, is basically what it's saying. A million zeros joined together do not, unfortunately, add up to one. Ultimately, everything depends on the quality of the individual. Young. But our fatally short-sighted age thinks only in terms of large numbers and mass organizations, though one would think that the world has seen more than enough of what a well-disciplined mob can do in the hands of a single madman. Unfortunately, the realization does not seem to have penetrated very far, and our blindness is extremely dangerous. The thing about all these famous people is that they've gone through this process, at least to some degree, of being squeezed into the eye of the needle and being forced to rely on their own intellect and say fuck everything in the whole universe. Really, that's what it takes, right? To become a powerful intellect, a powerful, evolved soul, right? So these are all people who are there, who have gone through it, or are close to it. The mob believes everything it is told, provided only that it be repeated over and over. Provided too that its passions, hatreds, fears are catered to, nor need one try to stay within the limits of plausibility. On the contrary, the grosser, the bigger, the cruder the lie, the more readily it is believed and followed, right? The grosser, the bigger, the cruder the lie, the more readily it is believed or followed. Nor is there any need to avoid contradictions. The mob never notices needless to pretend to correlate what is said to some with what is said to others. Each person or group believes only what he is told, not what anyone else is told. Needless to strive for coherence. The mob has no memory. Needless to pretend to any truth. The mob is radically incapable of perceiving it. The mob can never comprehend that its own interests are what is at stake. Wow, powerful. National hatred is something peculiar. You always find it strongest and most violent, whereas the lowest degree of culture. Yeah. Right? The cultureless, the unintelligent. And I'm not trying to make a case that Israel is right. I'm trying to make a case that what the mob is saying is not right. Right? That's, basically what they're saying is that Hamas is justified in raping and murdering and mutilating and torturing and kidnapping the Israelis. That was not right. Whether you think 1948 was a mistake or not, it was not right. And I will die believing that. It's not right. And it's not right if it happens to the Jews. It's not right if it happens to any people on the planet, no matter what, right? It's not right. Okay. So I'm fully against the whole world on this, even if the whole world they're not, it's not the whole world, but I'm willing to say that, because I've been squeezed through that eye of the needle to where I have to rely on my own sense rather than what the opinions of any group thinks. No, I don't belong to any group, just so you know. A river is easier to channel than to stop. So we need to channel the mob, not stop it. Yeah. When like-minded people get together, they often end up thinking a more extreme version of what they thought before they started to talk to one another. A murder shared with many others, which is not only safe and permitted, but indeed recommended, is irresistible to the great majority of men. A great majority of men grouped together will murder easily. Seen that again and again. Pilate was required to release one of the prisoners, so he gave the mob the choice of Jesus or Barabbas, a notorious murderer and insurrectionist. In other words, someone who incites mobs. Again, the mob spoke with one voice, demanding with loud shouts that Jesus be crucified. The mob also killed, was it Socrates? The mob killed Socrates. They voted for him to be killed. The mob killed Jesus. People blame the Jews. It was actually the Romans who actually did the killing, right? The Jews might have sold him out, but the Romans actually killed. And where do we have the Pope, the Catholic Church in Rome? It's ironic, right? But people want to blame the Jews. Okay, fine. Yes, and when there was that stoning of the woman, was it? I don't. I'm not very familiar with I'm vaguely familiar. Jesus said, Jesus was against it. He said, to the masses, he said, you have not sinned, cast the first stone or whatever, something like that. But again, thinking individually, not part of this group mindset. Jesus was not you will not find an exception to this. All of all souls think independently, and they do not buy into the masses, the mob mentality. Every single one. It's like 100%. You will not find any exception to this rule. That's practically the definition of somebody who's more evolved, that they do not think in terms of the mob mindset. They think independently. A mob is not autonomous. It executes the real will of the people who rule the state. The slaughter in Birmingham, Alabama, for example, was not merely the action of a mob. Okay. people who rule the state. It executes the real will of the people who rule the state. Okay. The factory bells had need to ring their loudest that morning to disperse. I don't know if this is all right. An oppressor mob is far more dangerous than an oppressor tyrant. All right. I think you get the idea. There's a lot of, I could keep going on and on and on and on. Nobody says anything very positive about the mob mentality. Right? Many great thinkers have all agreed the mob represents the lowest level of society, the lowest, most unintelligent, cruel, barbaric segment of society. And the great lie in the West is that democracy is like our highest virtue, and it's completely the opposite. Really, it's not. I'm for voting, right? I love voting, but on the backbone of laws that will protect the minority, not two wolves and a sheep voting on what's for dinner, right? Which is ridiculous. Democracy is not some great, highly evolved thing like they always pretend it is. You can just go here yourself. I mean, look at it yourself. I mean, they want you to think that because they know how to control the mob, right? They say it, and then the mob believes it. Oh, democracy is secondary. Here, one more. A mob has more tools at its disposal than individual actors do. Popularity, the quantity of clicks of use on any given time, is tracked and exploited by algorithms online, and a mob is a critical mass. If thousands of people are linking to something about you, that will quickly become the first thing that people see when they Google your name, regardless of whether it's fact-check news article or Smegmadan's 69's video about what a bitch you are. All right, cool. Albert Einstein. Intelligence and a character of the masses are incomparably lower than the intelligence and character of the few who produce something valuable for the community. Another Jew. What is mob mentality? Okay, I'm going to drive this into the ground just because the mob influence is so powerful. And unless you have the proper tools at your disposal to fight against it, a lot of people will easily be swept up into the herd mentality. So you need to have the mental tools in order to understand what it is. And therefore you can resist it once you understand it. Mob mentality, herd mentality, pack mentality, groupthink, or crowd psychology, the concept has many names. These all boil down to the same idea. Individuals are influenced by a larger group. Regardless of whether the group includes people in your class or neighborhood or an entire nation, you may experience mob mentality. In the 1950s, researchers conducted a famous conformity experiment that shows how readily people conform or change their behavior to match social norms. It involved a single participant was put in a room with 7 undercover accomplices. ASCH, I guess that's the group, whatever. Presented the group with 4 lines, and the goal was to determine which 2 lines were the same length. Even though the answer was obvious, the undercover accomplices purposefully gave an incorrect answer. The real participant answered last. The intent of the experiment was to see if the real participant would give a false answer, conforming with the accomplices, even if the correct answer was clear. The results were surprising. About 1/3 of the real participants answered incorrectly. They conformed to the wrong answer given by the rest of the group. Why did they do it? When the participants heard the incorrect answer, some started to believe that the incorrect answer was actually correct. Participants conformed mainly because they wanted to fit in with the rest of the group and thought the rest of the group was more informed than they were. This is also the reason why Jews argue against their own well-being and benefit of the whole, and you find Jews aligning with Hamas, supporting Hamas, which is insane, right? These are very low-level Jews. These are very unintelligent people who are arguing for their own demise. These would be like the bootlickers of the Nazis who would, sell out their own people just to win the approval of the Nazis. That's literally what these people are. These are jellyfish, not real human beings. I'm not going to be kind to them. These are animals, right? These people are not, have not qualified to be considered human. So take that, take that. do whatever you want with it. Stuff that in your peace pipe and smoke it. All right. The ACH conformity experiments were artificially created scenarios that you probably won't encounter in real life. However, however, you probably have regular chances to get caught up in mob mentality without realizing it. Everyday mob mentality, conforming to the group, is rarely conscious or dramatic. In your everyday life, consider how often you go to specific places, watch specific shows, or eat certain foods because your friends do. This process makes decision-making easier and keeps you from standing out in a group. Crowd behavior, public groups, and mobs are the most obvious example of mob mentality. Whether gathering to grieve, protest, or cheer on a sports team, a crowd can quickly adopt a group mentality. One of the dangers of mob mentalities is the type of influence it can have. According to the research about mob mentality, a small population with mob makes the informed decisions that other people conform to. The larger the group gets, the fewer informed members there are. The situation can become dangerous. As a crowd's perception actions change and conform, an event can become violent. We saw this with Antifa, and the media covered for them. They said mostly peaceful riots here with the flames and everything. Right? Absolute ridiculous insanity. Right? However, with organized leadership, a crowd's beliefs can be informed and directed in a more appropriate way. Causes: you might get caught up in mob mentality for a few reasons. If agreeing with the group poses a risk, you're more likely to stay silent. That risk can be small, like getting dirty looks, or large, like being punished. These groups do get violent. People have been beat up, attacked, even murdered, right? We've had some murders on both sides, right? So, I'm not making excuses for anyone. You probably won't conform to a group you have nothing in common with. There are several situations you might find yourself in that make you more open to mob mentality. And I know more like it when it happens in Israel than when it happens in the United States. Like there were a bunch of Jews who were, scared, and they were forced into like being held in a library because there was a mob outside, like violently, coming after them. Who knows what would happen if they weren't locked into the library where they couldn't get them. But some Arabs were in a similar situation with Jews in Israel. Israel is the only place in the world with a Jewish majority, sorry. But in any case, and that wasn't cool. I don't like that. I think Jews need to be stellar in their example to the world, because we are a minority, and the majority will not tolerate any sort of lowering of the bar. Jews need to behave better than everyone else because of the nature of being a minority. Any faults people will latch onto and use as an excuse to further their mob mentality against the Jews. Your group is going through a stress. All right, so making more open to mob mentality. Your group is going through a stressful situation. Group leadership is intimidating or overbearing. The group has a tendency to agree on every decision. There's no predetermined process for decision making. The group only interacts with itself. What are the signs? Mob mentality you can look for the following signs: optimism, disregarding risk, feeling invulnerable. So they're like, yeah, they're like the level of confidence, the level of, yeah, we're right, is feverish with the mob mentality. Frequent rationalization of dissenting opinions, right? Like they're just like 10,000%, we're right, you're wrong. 10,000, just like to the nth degree in the mob mind, right? The belief that groups' moral standards should apply to all people. We have to force our will on everyone, right? Self-censorship to maintain the status quo. They all lockstep with their sort of what they say, what they don't say. Belief in the illusion that everyone is on the same page. Well, they try to be, right? Even if they're not. They won't condemn Hamas. They say it was, Didn't happen in a vacuum. It's a long time coming bullshit, right? Again, they don't talk about anything else. They don't talk about the people killing each other, the Muslims and Christians killing each other in Africa. They don't talk about the slave trades, in Muslim populations, trading Africans literally in Libya right now, right? They don't talk about any of the other wars and where they stayed silent and many innocent people died. They ignored those. Those meant nothing to them, right? They're not talking about Pakistan, which was also created in 1948 for the Muslims after much killing. The Muslims are not native to India. They forced their way in there and they forced their own country on India, right? None of that matters. It's just about the Jews. The Jews aren't allowed to have anything, right? Because we're a minority. No, who's going to speak up for the Jews? Certainly, the 16 million Jews. We don't have a loud voice. We have influence, but not in the same numbers. So I'm not trying to be a victim here. This is what it is. Jews do have influence, just not in numbers. All right. How to avoid going against mob mentality might feel like you're going against the grain. If you want to stop mob mentality, there are tools you can use. Emphasize including people and their points of view, including people, not excluding, including people and their points of view. Identify and analyze unspoken rules or assumptions within your group. Unspoken assumptions, rules. Regularly acknowledge any biases you may have. Practice decision-making. Don't punish people who are honest or disagree. Right? So that's it. Very troubling times. I definitely don't want to delve into, I don't want this to devolve into World War III, right? But there's a dilemma. There's a dilemma, which a lot of people ignore. Hamas has hostages. They have 200 citizens, right? And people are saying, oh, Hamas wanted to negotiate. Yeah, well, because Israel has a lot of militant hostages, like 10,000. And so Hamas wants to exchange. Israel said no to that, rightfully so, because these are terrorists, right? They're not holding innocent civilians hostage. They're holding terrorists hostage. They're holding criminals hostage. So it's not the same as holding people who did nothing, who are dancing, right? Children, babies, right? These are the hostages. So it's not the same. So that's the first issue. Second issue is Israel's not willing to let Hamas do this again. A lot of people are very generous with Israeli Jewish lives. They think, just pay the price, give 1,000 or 2,000 innocent citizens every, 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, maybe 6 months, every few weeks, whatever, once a week, whatever. Just let Hamas do it regularly. We just for peace, because you can't go in there and kill any Palestinians, right? I don't agree with. First of all, I don't like killing Palestinians. I don't want to kill anyone, right? I don't want the war. I'm not for the war, but it's a dilemma, and I'm not the one making decisions. So it doesn't matter if I agree or disagree. It doesn't have any bearing. But I can understand the dilemma Israel's in. Israel has a duty to protect its citizens. That's its duty. Its duty is not to protect Gaza. Its duty is not to supply Gaza with electricity, with water, with food. That's Gaza's problem. That's Gaza's issue. That's Hamas's issue. And you say, oh, the blockade. Egypt also has a blockade because Hamas has terrorized Egypt. So why don't you protest against Egypt, right? Why isn't Egypt taking in Arabic Muslims from Palestine, which is the same people, right? A lot of the Palestinians came from other places, by the way. I know Jews did too, but so did Palestinians, right? Any case, I didn't want to make this a big argument about the Jews versus Palestinians, so I'll try to I have my opinions, I have my ideas, but it's definitely not a one-sided, clear-cut case. Oh, the Jews are wrong, Israel's wrong. No, and if that's what you think, then I do have to argue in favor of Israel, because that's not the way it is. And I'm, I have so much at stake. This is my grandpa is. This literally was the life of my grandparents lived. This marked their life. It was escape the Nazis, right? And then build a prosperous life. After 16 years of Israel, Israel saved them, by the way. Israel saved them and my mother because they had nowhere to go. So they went to Israel for 16 years and they were safe and protected. Their own country wanted to kill them, believe it or not. They're Hungary, their own country. They lost everything in Hungary, and their own country wanted them murdered. So that's unfortunate. I mean, obviously, it wasn't everyone in the country, but it was enough. Like they I don't even know like my the way my mind works. I don't have like encyclopedic brain. Like I can read stuff, and it's like I have to really intentionally want to remember it in order to remember it, because I'll read stuff and just forget it. So I'm not sure of the exact politics that happened in Hungary during World War II, but I do know that like the Nazis were. I'm not sure that how their own government reacted. It was communist at one point, I believe. But in any case, yeah, my grandparents were hunted and they survived. They lived. Many of my grandmother's family did not survive. My grandfather was an orphan, so he didn't really know his family. He wasn't Jewish anyway, but he married a Jew, right? Little known detail about my family. My grandfather was Christian, married a Jew, which was taboo back then, like sinful, right? But these were human beings. They weren't after religion. They were just like, hey, you're cool, I'm cool, we're human. Let's get together, right? So it wasn't this huge divide. And yeah, so it's a huge thing for me, right? It's been like, with my family, this whole like idea of like Jew hatred, and I'm not religious, but it's not about religion. Hitler did not ask the Jews how religious they are. He asked if their mother was a Jew, and if your mother's a Jew, you get a yellow star, and you get discriminated against. You get your business destroyed. You have to move into the ghetto. You're not allowed to own a gun. And then when the time came, you get shipped off to the concentration camps, right? And then you get gassed or shot or whatever, or you hide and you survive, like my grandparents did. They survived. They had their ways, and they were smart about it, right? So they survived, and they managed to escape. They went to Israel. Israel saved my family. So yeah, I'm for Israel, right? I'm for protection of the Jews, because guess what? It's not a very friendly place in this world for any minority, gypsies included, right? Gypsies, Jews, old people, right? These Nazis want to kill old people. They want to kill you if you're sick too. They want to kill you if you have any mental health issues, mentally handicapped, right? Unless you're one of these supermen, these Ubermensch, they want to kill you. That's the Nazi mentality, right? So unless you're perfect, you're gonna die by the same hands. So like, I do not think it's wise choice to be on the side of the group that's calling for the genocide of the Jews because we're such evil people, right? I'm so evil for wanting to live, for not wanting to fucking die. I'm an evil person, right? And they put up sound bites. This has happened to me again and again and again online. Like somebody will throw up like one person, like one Jew, saying awful things, and like these people deserve to be condemned. These individual Jews who say terrible things, and then they make it out like this is all the Jews. It's not all the Jews. Yeah, we have bad apples just like every other group. You think like all Christians are saintly? Oh yeah, like the priests who rape boys. Like fuck off, right? The Pope who says Klaus Schwab is more important than Jesus Christ. He's a Satanist, right? Or the Muslims who like they condone 80-year-olds marrying 9-year-olds, right? That's pedophilia. Or like terrorism. You want to make you're making these people are excusing terrorism, like murdering innocent civilians, raping, mutilating, dismembering, cutting heads off. That really happened. I've seen photos. So fuck you if you think it's a lie. These people are lying. It's really happening. I've seen photos. And there's videos. We have it all. I mean, it's real. Like this happened. And people are denying it. No, it never happened. The Holocaust never happened. And if it did, the Jews deserved it. That sort of thing, right? Very horrific stuff. People are extremely cruel, right? And dishonest. So like, yeah, this terrorism is never justified. Never justified if you're a human being. If you have a human heart, if you're humane, it's never fucking justified. You can't go around just murdering innocent civilians and say, I'm right, I'm justified, in the worst possible way, burning them alive, I don't even want to talk. It's like I've been kept up at night thinking about these things because the amount of horror they did, and it's terrorism. I'll tell you why, because of the psychological impact. It's not just killing people and kidnapping people. They wanted to create the most suffering, the most psychological damage they could, and they did. They recorded it, they videoed it, they cut a woman open, pregnant woman, took out her baby, and then killed the baby, right? Recorded the whole thing. They did awful, awful things to these people, to children, to babies. Yes, it really happened with the babies. Fuck off, right? I've seen photos. These photos are just like, they're horrific, horrible. Like, you don't want to see them ever, right? And I know innocent people are dying in Palestine, and I don't like that either. And I'm not making excuses for that either. And if there were, if Israel said, okay, we've came to a resolution and there's peace today, I'll be like, thank God. Like, I want it to end. I want there to be some finality to this, because this shit is exhausting, and it's horrifying, and it's terrible. And I want there to be peace, like, really, but I don't know how else to do it. And people are just saying ceasefire, want to sacrifice Israeli lives, innocent Israeli lives, right? And at least IDF is attempting to only go after Hamas, right? So, I mean, look, I see both sides. I hate that innocent people are dying. A lot of these people do support Hamas, though, and that is not good either, right? They won't condemn it. Look at their language. They refuse to condemn Hamas, but they want us to forget about the Israeli citizens who are kidnapped, the babies, the children, the families, right? Innocent civilians who are not soldiers. These are not soldiers who are kidnapped. These are not militants. These are innocent civilians, and they want Israel to just accept that Hamas is going to keep doing this. Regularly take 1,000 Israeli innocent civilians who are just partying, having a good time. No, that is absolutely not acceptable by any people on the planet. Nobody would accept that. Nobody would accept that, right? They excuse it with, oh, Israel's not illegitimate, therefore, bullshit. Go fuck yourself. Like, you accept that. You give up your family to terrorists. I'm not giving up mine. So no, and we're not leaving Israel. We're not, you give up Pakistan. Like, people who are demanding Israel get up and leave. Why doesn't Pakistan get up and fucking leave? Right? It's about as ridiculous as that, right? So, or like, America get up and leave because we slaughtered 100 fucking million natives for this land. Same with Australia, New Zealand, Canada, right? All the Americas. Well, a lot of the South American countries, they created a hybrid race. I hope you realize that the natives breeded with the Europeans, and then you have like hybrids, which is fine. I got no problem with it. I have no issue with that, but that's what that is. But in any case, sometimes that happened, sometimes that didn't happen. A lot of South American countries are full of white people or mixed, right? In any case, it's a mixed up world we live in, right? And there's no clear-cut case. What about the Muslims who are slowly making their way into Africa and killing all the Christians? Okay, well, the Christians came and did that to the native religions. Who's right here, right? Shit happens. So, unless you're going to remake the whole world by fiat, by demand, and say every right that ever happened we need to correct, well, you're going to be doing a lot of moving around and redoing everything, and like, fuck off. Well, where are we going to end up with? Well, we're going to end up with Jews back in Israel, I'll tell you that, because Jews were in Israel 4,000 years ago. So if you want to go about all the way back, at least with Israel and the Jews, that's the way you go. But other than that, you just have to let shit be, right? Whether you agree with it or not. Things happen. You can't just say the Jews shouldn't be there anymore. Okay, that's your opinion. They are there, right? They are there. And unless you're going to be fair about it and do that for everyone everywhere, right? Then shut the fuck up, because Jews don't want to be singled out anymore. And we're going to fight. And this is existential at this point. Like, you already want to kill us, so what else do we have to do but fight, right? We have to fight for survival. And I don't want to fight. I don't have a gun. I'm not going to go shoot anyone. Like if somebody wants to kill me, they're going to kill me, right? Because that's just the way I am. But other Jews think differently, and that's fine. I support that too. But I'm going to use diplomacy. I'm going to use my mind. I'm going to use my whatever tools I have at my disposal. Obviously, I don't have money, so I'm not going to use that. But I will use my words. I'll use my video platform, and I know a lot of people don't like to hear, things outside the norm, because a lot of people are sheep. A lot of people are fucking animals, and they're just dumb, and they believe whatever the mob thinks, right? And they'll justify it. They'll be like, no, it's not because the mob been told it. You're an idiot. Like, basically, if you're marching with the fucking mob, you're an idiot, because that's where you're at. So, I mean, I'm sorry if that's hurtful, but at least you got your billion people to support you, and probably don't give a shit what I think anyway. So yeah, there's that. Any case, guys, it's all very troubling. I'm deeply disturbed by it. And even though I support Israel, I think a lot of Jews feel very, conflicted inside, because we don't want to kill people, right? That's not our thing. Jews are not fundamentally fighters. We are survivors. We have to be. We've had to. But we're intellectuals and we're creatives. Jews, if you want to get down to it, and I'm being very vulnerable here because it's one of the things that makes people hate Jews, is how intellectually creative we are, right? You go in any field that involves the intellect and creativity in the world, and you're going to see a lot of Jews disproportionately. The area where you're not going to see a lot of Jews is sports, right? Physical stuff, historically, less so, right? Intellectual and creative pursuits, Jews are everywhere. But each group, like I said, has its own strength and weakness. So it's not saying like Jews are better than anyone else, or like this thing where like Jews go around telling ourselves that we're the chosen people. That's way out of context. As long as I'm talking about it, might as well address that. I see all the time online how Christians be like, the only way to God is through Christ. So everyone, or Muslims will say like, Islam is the only way. Islam will conquer the world. Every group, I'm not picking on them. I'm just saying every group has an ego about it and likes to promote themselves to themselves. It's a way of communicating to the group within the group, right? And because Jews had this idea of God, Jews envisioned God telling the Jews that it was the chosen people. Well, it's the reflection. You have to understand it psychologically. It's the reflection. If Jews created God conceptually, which is what it is, and it doesn't mean it's wrong, it just means they're conceiving of a singular God. And there is truth to that. It's not that it's not true, but it's also a mirror in concept. Understand what I'm saying? In order to think of anything in the brain, you have to have a concept. So in order to recognize one God, you have to have a concept of one God. And the concept of that one God is telling the Jews that they're chosen people, but it's the Jews talking to themselves about their creation of one God and a reflection back. I'm not expressing this in the best possible way, but I'm trying to, because I understand it. I just don't have all the best words to say what I'm trying to say. I want to say it's their imaginary friend speaking back to them, because it's more than that. The concept is imagined. The reality is that, but that's the nature of all concepts. All concepts are imagined. So whatever we think, it's imagined, right? But we can have the reflection of that as a conversation, right? And because you could say it like this: because the Jews invented God, God told the Jews that they were the chosen people, because they invented him, right? So it's like, okay, so that's the personal relationship, right? It's like, husband and wife being sweet to each other, right? Like a husband tells a wife, well, you're the chosen one. Well, you're her chosen one. You're his chosen one, right? Or the wife telling the husband, you're the chosen one, right? You're his chosen one, right? Because you chose each other. So the Jews, the personal God, the marriage between the Jews and their personal God was that they both said to each other, you're the chosen one, right? So it's like a sweet kind of relationship. So people take it out of context. They say it the wrong way, right? Like Jews think they're better than everyone else. Everyone thinks they're better than everyone else until you resolve the ego. It's the nature of the ego, right? So it's not unique to Jews. I mean, and the more evolved Jews don't think they're better than everyone else, right? It's only the human nature, the lower aspect of the human nature that we go around thinking we're better than everyone else. That's basically our why the individual fights for their own self-interest, right, over others. That's the whole human dilemma, right? You know, we have to put ourselves first, but as we grow and evolve, we realize that we have to include others, and that in order to put ourselves first, we have to put others first, right? And just, you know, as an extension of ourselves, right? Like I've always said, in order to have, in order to grow, you have to have a dream that extends beyond yourself. So that's kind of the same thing, right? You have to include others, right? So that's the evolution of it. First comes you think about yourself, survival, then you think about others as you mature, and your scope becomes bigger and bigger. The most evolved people in the world take responsibility for the whole world, right? They want, you hear that like with these really powerful people, right? They're talking about like my dream, my vision, my goal is to help, you know, everyone in the world. I've heard that from numerous highly, you know, evolved people who don't even know each other, or probably didn't know each other, right? Different times, different spaces, different, you know, coming from different cultures and ideologies. They arrive at the same place, right? Responsibility for all of humanity, or as much people as possible. Right. So maybe that's it for now. I want to encourage everyone not to be caught up in the mob mentality, right? And to question. Yeah, I'm not saying that you should be on any particular side. I'm just saying you should question and really start thinking for yourself and reject what the masses are saying and really look at the facts independently and come to your own conclusion. Right. So yeah. I definitely don't want things to escalate. I don't want World War III. I don't want innocent civilians to die anywhere in Israel or Gaza or anywhere else. I want there to be peace and resolution. And I definitely don't think it's right for people to support resistance, where people are violently killing, murdering, you know, civilians anywhere, any place, anytime. I'm fully against that, right? Always. So I hope you can understand that it's never justified, right? So I'm gonna wrap it up here. And I haven't been able to make any astrology videos. I've just been too consumed with this whole thing. I know we had an eclipse just yesterday, full moon eclipse, and so that's good. It let's just take a look at that for 1 second. Why not? All right, so I have it queued up to the eclipse moment, the exact eclipse moment. That was yesterday at 4:25 in Philadelphia PM. And we have, it's a full moon eclipse, and it's not super strong, but I guess strong enough. I mean, the north node is out of sign. I don't know how much that matters, but so 11 degrees from the nodes, right? But moon's in Taurus, where it's exalted, and it is conjunct by also 6 degrees. Not also 6 degrees, by 6 degrees, Jupiter, which is its friend. And Jupiter in Taurus is neutral, but this combination is very excessive, very abundant, right? So what we can expect from this is Full moon eclipses show a ripening of karma. Because when it's a solar eclipse, that's the new moon, that's the beginning of a phase. When it's full moon, that's the full expansion, the prime, right, of the moon phase. So here we're at the the prime expansion of the moon's phase. And it's together with Jupiter in Taurus, where it's exalted, where Moon is exalted and benefited by Jupiter's expansion, excessiveness, right? And so we have this ripening of karma in Taurus. So it's very abundant and rich and excessive, right? So we can expect a windfall wherever this falls in your chart. You have to compare it to your chart. For me, it's very close to my ascendant descendant axis. So I could say that this could result in some kind of new relationship for me. Not necessarily romantic, could be a friendship, could be a business partnership, but some sort of personal kind of combination where I receive a beneficial relationship, because Moon is exalted once again, and Jupiter is a great benefic, right? And it's in Taurus, so it's like abundance, material especially, right? Then we're also supported by a Mars in Scorpio, right? Conjunct Mercury. So a quite verbal, intellectual, verbally capable Mars, right? So this is a Mars that it can be very fierce, being in Scorpio, but it also has the advantage of the intellect and verbs, verbal, not just verbs and nouns, verbal, right? Communication, right? Words, and expression and skills of the hand. So like this would be very skillful, intellectual, smart. Mars, very capable of arguments, right, and verbal disputes, and this good dignity Mars is supporting this Sun as well, right? And so this is a very calculating, strategic Mars. So this is a very strategic combination, right? Because Scorpio, especially Mars in Scorpio and Mercury in Scorpio, Sun Scorpio too, is very psychological, but also likes the planning. And so for anything with war or aggression or winning or domination, which is, all in Scorpios, archetype, theme, motif, wheelhouse, that is where Scorpio can excel, right? So thinking very strategically, planning the attack, being very intelligent about how it goes. So we're going to see a lot of strategy, and we're going to see a lot of material gain, it looks like, right? Because it's very material. Also, and it's obviously not everyone can gain. Some people are going to have to, there's winners and losers always, right? But Uranus also is a wild card, and it's going to shake things up, disturb things. So it's not going to be perfectly smooth, right? But this eclipse should be interesting. I think one side is going to win, one side is going to lose. It looks that way, right? Or maybe both sides win in different ways. But there's something very materialistic, material gain about this, and some upsets, some sudden events, unforeseen things here, capturing this Uranus, Uranian energy, and a lot of strategic, secret things. Hopefully there can be more diplomacy and less violence with this combination, but we'll see. So I don't know. So anything else here? Let's see, we have a sesquisquare with Neptune and Pisces, so a lot of deception, especially as it relates to Mercury and Mars. So like a lot of secrecy and deception, lies, dishonesty, right? What else? I mean, yeah, I mean, Neptune does not have good aspects to the south node as well, or the north node, neither of the nodes, and not really very many good aspects. So a lot of confusion and deception and lies, and the negative side of Neptune and Pisces is people believing in fantasy, right? And then Saturn and Pisces here too, it has a square to Sedna. Again, in Pisces, that is going to be very misleading and deceptive, but Saturn also is very authoritarian. And in Pisces, it's definitely going to embrace very a lot of liberal sort of mindset. Pisces also has a tendency to be very, very supportive of the mob mentality because of its nature of sleepiness, right? Think about the school of fish. It's just the mob mind. And it's not that all Pisces have that mob mind. I mean, Pisces again is a very triangular shape because of that. The most of Pisces is about being asleep at the wheel and conformist, right? And then as you get to the higher realms of Pisces, it's about being very awake and spiritually evolved, right? So it's the highest and the lowest Pisces. In fact, if you want to know the truth, that's the polarity, the truth, the whole ultimate enlightenment, but also really asleep at the wheel. Religion, the masses, conformity, the sheep, the group mindset. And when Saturn is here, it's really about the authoritarianism of this asleep at the wheel, believing in fantasy, dreaming, sleeping. So it's not a great combination here for the truth, or the masses being correct. The masses really are asleep at the wheel, with this combination. That this combination really supports delusional and authoritarian masses, right? The masses who are coming together in their delusion, demanding, being very Saturnian and authoritative, demanding that their demands are met. And then, of course, we have Pluto and Capricorn still, which is the same old story, which is very draconian, tyrannical. In any case, those are the transits. That's what's going on right now. Venus and Virgo does not seem like it's helping much, right? Venus and Virgo can be very aggressive, picky, deeply dissatisfied. Yeah, in any case. That's pretty much it, guys. I hope this video finds you well, and I wish peace upon everyone listening and peace upon the world. And let's not strive for sort of this violent, one-sided bias sort of blame game where we're targeting any minority groups, right? Jews are not going to hop in the grave just because people think they should. So let's be a little bit more compassionate and loving and caring, right? Of differences and differing opinions, and allow everyone to live. So yeah. Alrighty, that's it for now. I wish you all the best. All right. Joe Axman, mediocre astrologer, signing off. Nah, he's okay. I hardly feel like saying that, but I do anyway, just because it gives me a giggle. And we should all strive to laugh as much as we can, even when it's hard. Maybe especially when it's hard. So that's one for the road. All right. Bye.